Hey everybody, and welcome back to potentially the last tier list video based on Wargame Dragon. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna make another meme video just like I did with the FOBs, but with the tier list that I started to do over a year ago, it took quite a long time to finish that. Admittedly, it was one video per week, and as always, I tried to ramble, or not I tried to, but I end up rambling a lot more than I probably should. But let's finish this off, I guess, right? This tier list here, there, that's better. Adjusted for South Africa, or like putting in the South African units, and if it doesn't take too long, also do the patch notes. If not, I'm gonna split it up in two videos. I probably end up having to do that today, or for me tomorrow, the South African units, and then on Thursday the updated patch. Seems like a fitting, I guess, big potential goodbye to Red Dragon. If that's a big if, honestly, Warno ends up living to the expectations. I think if it doesn't, I think it would be quite demoralizing, honestly, right? I think for now people were relatively content. I wouldn't say happy, but content to just continue playing Red Dragon. But I think if the next game ends up not being that fun for some people, or like those people who didn't enjoy Vision like me, and then they're happy for or like excited about Warno, and then Warno ends up being disappointing, or just you just don't end up liking it. I think that makes playing Red Dragon harder, as well as if Warno just simply wasn't announced. But this isn't about Warno, it's about Wargame, specifically South African units, right? I think I'm actually gonna go into, at least for logistics, I should go into deck building. Just have to make sure that 20% availability, because some of these have some interesting availability. Anyway, logistic Alouette E tier. We already have that in all command helicopters. I hope I stay consistent with the way I rate units, by the way. In infantry, I think I took into consideration, but with transports and whatnot, so let's hopefully do that here as well. Alouette infantry CV, I think we have like A tier. Infantry CVs, yep. Oliphant. Actually, hold up, let me just see. Right, only the Buffalo, I think, has. Yeah, okay. Only the Buffalo has special availability. But I was curious, Oliphant. I think that's a faster Danish Centurion. It is 10 kmh faster. Can you see? Yeah, you can't see the Danish. You know what? Hold on. So you see, it's for the same price, you get a better gun, you get less ammo, but kind of irrelevant. Although, honestly, I think having the Browning over the MG4 is honestly better than having the better gun. I'm not even joking. But the speed is definitely the biggest thing here. Browning, not to be underestimated, gun is irrelevant. The fuel, mostly irrelevant, although 350 kilometers is quite on the low end. Practically speaking, though, I don't think there's a huge difference. Now, where did I put it in? B or C tier? Chieftain Abrams. There's the Centurion. Alright then. Oliphant BV. Alright. Aratel BV. I mean, it's essentially it's like a BRDM 2, right? Two front armor though instead of one. That is quite nice. Still only 4 per card though. If it had 2 side armor as well, that would help a lot, but it just doesn't. Where did I put it? Did I put it in? Did I put it in D tier? The BRDM? No. I did put it in D tier. There it is, BRDM 2. You know what? Sure. Although, yeah, well, let's just stay consistent. And I think honestly, like, let's be real, right? The logistics Rover is a Jeep CV. Buffalo is actually better than a Jeep CV. Honestly, I'm gonna put this into C tier. because it has better availability, but still the 6 per card availability, but has 1 armor all-round except for top, which is not that relevant, and 10 HP. It's a similar story to the Humvee CV, but the Humvee also has a 50 cal. But definitely a significant step up over normal GPVs. And then the Caspier, irrelevant. And I misspelled this. I'll be honest, I'm not gonna give you timestamps for all the individual units this time around. I'm just gonna give it, like, I think tab by tab. B10 Unita, they're essentially the same as the basic Tanke Shasho, which I probably put in C tier. My god, how am I supposed to find anything here? I put them in D tier. Okay, yeah, true. The thing is, I remember them being 10 points. In the closed beta version, or the preview version, they were actually 10 points, which was actually kind of nice. At 50 points, I think D tier might still be not so great, but at the same time, they don't really have any great transports. Honestly, I'm gonna go with consistency of the individual units over what I think about now. Boghob. The infantry itself is whatever. It's okay. It's certainly not garbage, but line infantry for 10 points, it's acceptable. You know, RPG 7 is quite nice. Their transports, honestly, pretty good. Rattle 20 certainly is the only way to get Rattle 20s for 25 points. Except for, I guess, yeah, Milan ones also get those. Or the Milans. Do I have the tier list up? Yeah, I do. I think I would say B tier. Is it quite? It might actually be A tier. Just being able to spam those Rattle 20s. It is 2 front armor versus Vab D20s. 1 front armor, but I don't think it's quite A tier. It is B tier, and they do get boosted by. God, let me write in black, please. They do get boosted. Oh my god. They do get boosted by the Rattle 20s, but not enough to, like, suddenly put them like 2 tiers higher or anything like that. Book up 90. 23 AP, 700 meters range, and 60% accuracy is quite nice. They're honest. Are they? No. Them and the Fusilier 90s are like blue for. The only way blue for. I guess the only good high-end line infantry that you could get mainly for the AT weapon. The only other optional similar thing is really one of those Regi 90, but they just lack their range and accuracy. Very, very similar to Fusilier 90s, but the 20 RPM is just quite the difference. Especially because of the lower veterancy. They tend to be a bit inconsistent, although Book Up 90s do get, you know, 10% extra accuracy over Fusilier 90s. And they also get the Rattle series, which is really, really good. So let's do that. And yeah, again, I would say that transports boost them by another, you know, tier, but not enough to, like, be incredible. Buffaloes are interesting because they actually have a better MG than the Buffaloes 90, significantly better, right? This is a mini-me clone. So they are actually, I wouldn't say cost efficient, but not too bad to take in, like, your motor deck or something, or like an infantry heavy deck that is an unspec purely for town grinding. But you still pay, you know, 25 points for a 50-man squad. That's just a basic RPG 7. So honestly, I would have been put in a C tier for that. Like, niche. It's just simply niche. They're not necessarily bad, but just very, very niche, I would say. Because sometimes, or in some town fights, right, the amount of squads is not always everything, because depending on what town you're in, you can only get shot at from, like, one other town block and the others don't have line of sight or something like that. Or if you're in CQC, then, you know, only the squads in CQC shoot at you. So having 2 of those might sometimes be better than having like 4 Motrits or something along those lines. Next up, Buffalo's 85. Before release, or when they were like, even like when the Infantry showcase, the dev diary was posted by Eugen, and they were being mentioned as 50-man squads of Milan teams. There was quite some so people were anxious a bit, you know, like, could this be a bit overpowered or something like that? And I was definitely in the camp of this might be really broken. They are quite good, but they fill a role that you don't always need, because they are quite bad at killing infantry. But at the same time, in a defensive position against like IFV spam is where they really, really shine. The extra veterancy also means the Milan F1 doesn't, you know, miss as often. You don't die to random artillery fire as easily, at least. They are sort of niche, but they fill that niche very well, which is, even though they are a niche, kind of, not completely, but kind of infantry, designate here. But an interesting thing, they're reservists. I'm typically not always a fan of reservists. Only really in the 5-pointers. 5-pointer reservists and 5-pointers is what I prefer. But in the K card, they do work a bit differently. But we have to keep in mind, they're prototype, right? So we only know how they perform in the South African deck. And the South African deck just plays wildly different than any other deck, even Blue Moto, because you just don't really have something like a Wehrman that, even though they're line or cheap, they can still quite decently fight, right? You just don't have these type of squads. So you very often just have to, if you want cheap fodder or something, you just have to get those. And you just have nothing to compare them to, right? Especially because very often you also take them in a K car. So they're an interesting bunch. And by no means bad, but I'm just going to put them in C tier. Inflict, again, honestly, same thing. They are nice, but they're niche, right? And in some matchups they do poorly, in others they do great. Some maps, some positions they're amazing, in others it's just very hard to make use of them. I'm also gonna go a bit quicker through these than usual. Mechinf are essentially like base Rima, but since they cost 20 points, the Rattles are still nice, but because they are already somewhat expensive, you don't really get as much out of these transports as you get with like 10-point line infantry, if you were to just mainly buy them for their transports. I put them, where did I put base Rima? C or D tier? Yeah, it's C tier. I'm also not gonna take into account that they are the only wheeled infantry in armored. For armored, they're of course much, much higher, because Rattles are not only good, but also wheeled, right? But that's not how this works. Mechinf 90. Again, as you get into the more expensive squads, the FT5 kind of isn't as amazing anymore. Again, on 15-point line infantry, great, but it's very, very similar to, let's say this, right? Type 69.3, good, right? Imagine if you could get 15-point Bojungs to 90 with a Type 69.3, right? That would be a really, really good squad. However, if you paid 30 points for this, Type 69.3 just gets overshadowed when for the same price, or even cheaper, you get something like an Eric's, which is just so much better. It's kind of the same issue with the Mechinf 90. I mean, there's still only 10-point shocks, right? So it's not like you paid 30 or 35 points for them. But that, combined with the fact that they have a basic MG, just makes them honestly just very, very underwhelming. But they are not. They're still certainly a tier above base mech and TBQH. But I would say they're at the bottom of the B tier. I wouldn't really be surprised to see someone say, "No, in my opinion, they're C tier." I'm not 100% not really disagreeing with you that much. Milan we already had, and honestly, they're not particularly different. Other Milans, where did I put the Milan? Probably B tier, right? B or A tier? Probably B. Oh, A tier actually even. You know what? I'm gonna go with old Razzmann. Or like past Razzmann. The Rattles are nice, especially the Rattle 60 combination, but I wouldn't say that suddenly that this is something that transforms the unit on a whole level. So Parabat are kind of like blue for Mordredson, right? 50-point shock infantry. But there's two major differences. Number one, you get an FN mag instead of an RPK, which is quite a downgrade, not insignificant. Number two, you transports. For one, you don't get a 5-point transport, which is unfortunate, of course, but it's not too bad, right? Most of the time, Mordredson you see with the 10-point transports. But like, none of these transports are incredibly cost efficient, right? This is just an 8. It's pretty. It's not a bad autocannon, right? But against infantry, it's a good autocannon even. But it's still only on 1 armor and just dies very quickly. It's glass cannon kind of thing versus VAP T20. And the Parabats themselves just aren't really amazing. I tried spamming them out, like using them upgraded similar to Mordredson, but they don't perform on the same level. And the fact that they don't have a BMP1 or an option to get them within 5-point transport really, really hurts them. Parabat 90 on the other hand, they're pretty good. They still only have the FT5, but compared to Mech Inf 90, they have the Mini SS instead of the SS77. Like, look at the rate of fire and accuracy, right? That's a Mini-Me clone, and that's an M60 clone. And it's just, even if they don't get like the Rattels and something significantly better, but honestly, still only B tier. Just simply because of their underwhelming transport selection. And the fact that the FT5 just isn't quite there, right? We have Rima 85, which for the same price also have a Mini-Me, also an assault rifle, but an Apelas, which trades 10% accuracy for 10 RPM. And I get a VAP T20, which is a better K car, a basic VAP, which is a better Caspier or Buffalo, and Panthers as transports. Sapper, they're like Saperi, right? Like your typical 10-man squad. Oh, did I put them all in a D tier? Honestly, I'd put them all in the C tier these days, but that's for if I end up doing that, I'll do that sometime different. These days, I definitely don't think they're D tier anymore. I think they're all the basic 10-point flamethrower squads. Honestly, more like C tier. SASF. Very, very similar to FJB. In fact, arguably better, but there's just one difference. Look at the. Oh wait, did I fix the? Oh no. Oh no, it's a different thing, right? It's not the reload time; it's the accuracy. Like FJB, I think are the only ones with the Strela 3 that has 50% accuracy. This is obviously a Strela 2M, not a Strela 3, but I'm pretty sure all the other Strela 3s have like this. There's some other Strela 3s, right? Yeah, look at this Strela. Hold on, it's gonna be a bit awkward because yeah, let's just do it like this, like as if I tried to think. So it was like actually someone with a brain. Right, same weapon, 6-second reload time versus 4 seconds. That kind of, I guess I can understand if you were to say, oh well, they're 10 men and they reload quickly. Then again, the other 10 special forces don't reload their man pads quicker either. But of course, also 10% extra accuracy for no good reason. Really is quite a big deal, of course. But of course, SASF have the Airrack F1, which is significantly better than the RPG 7B. So probably B tier, right? Is that where FJB are? Yep. SASF 90. S tier. Although they really don't shine in voice crack. They really don't shine in South Africa. I think if they were in other decks, they would be. You would notice them a lot more. Stinger is just typical Stinger squad. Stinger A. Strela 2. I probably even have. Yeah, there's a Strela 2 down here. I don't even have to write it because it's and then Strela 3. Yeah, whatever, nobody cares about Strelas. As infantry tab. Support. or anti-air first. We have the cactus, which is essentially a Crotale, which is in A tier. The cactus SAHV, honestly, I feel very similar about. If in South Africa, I basically always take the base cactus because I also always take the HVM, and then with the cactus I have something cheaper available, and I also like to take the boss warg for like base defense. So that's why I just never take the SAHV, because it just price-wise just overlaps too much with the HVM. I'd rather have something more affordable and higher availability. In other decks though, you know, if I had, I don't know, other AA, 40-point AA or something like that, or whatever, I might take the SHV. I think Nick the Mine even prefers the SHV. The nice thing, of course, is Fire and Forget, and, you know, extra accuracy, extra range can be nice. But I think this it's just a trade-off. Just, I wouldn't say one is definitely better than the other. Then the HVM, honestly, S tier, it's such a good piece. It's fast. It's, you know, very, very similar to the Hawk Pip 3. Can also protect you very good, very, very well against helicopters. Of course, it's radar, but again, really, really fast. Even decently armored. So HE artillery isn't gonna kill it as quickly. Just all around, very, very amazing AA piece. Then we have the Uservark, which is the exact same thing as the NM something, you know, the Norwegian thing. I think NM45, which is also in there. It's the exact same gun stat wise. Bossvark is like a Ural, which is also down here. C tier. It's like alright base defense and stuff like that. And flank defense, it stuns really, really well, but doesn't kill as amazingly. But sometimes stunning is enough. For a second, I thought my man was topless here. And Roykat set A35, basically a wheeled Gabard. I guess that means it's, how does the accuracy compare? I know you can't see this. It's slightly worse accuracy, but it is wheeled. So yeah. Definitely. Again, and of course, as all the Roykats, so goddamn fast. Artillery, we have the Elan 60, which is the exact same thing as the French AML 60. Where did they even put that? Yeah, in B tier. Rattle 81 is just your typical 3HE motor, which is it an 81? Yeah, it's 81 millimeter. Rattle 120 is the exact same thing, I believe, as the, what's it called? VBL? Where is it? VPM 120. Pretty sure that's the exact same thing. So we're gonna give it the same rating. Where did I put the VPM? E tier. I mean, the VPM, they can be used quite nice offensively, but they eat farms like nothing else. Rover 107, now this is interesting. It's like a Napalm MLRS. It's the only, besides the Buratino, of course, honestly the only good one, because the other ones have either huge dispersion, horrible rate of fire, take ages to reload, or a mixture of those. And the Rover 107, it just reloads so goddamn quickly, aims, I think, pretty fast. It is actually quite decent. I'd honestly put it in B tier. Valkyrie, honestly, same thing. The rockets aren't half bad. It reloads relatively quickly, actually. Did I change that? Oh, I always forget, because some things changed drastically between the preview version and the beta version. In the preview version, this was a lot closer to the Plamen in terms of firepower, like one of the preview versions. I think none it was before we could stream it, so you never saw it in action. It was much closer to the Plamen, not as strong, because it still had the same dispersion and whatnot, and longer aim time, which still has. But yeah, it still has a salvo reload of 144, which is actually quite good. And it sets apart from stuff like Grads, Base the Lars 1, etc. Butler is the same thing as the ARM-70 cluster, which is garbage. I'll admit I never used this thing. You have to keep in mind that the 4HE, or like the HE of proper howitzers like this, has actually a bigger suppression, more suppression, I believe, but most notably a bigger radius of explosion and suppression, right? Which is why the 5HE howitzers like the Anzac one, etc., actually are significantly better in terms of the damage of an individual shell than 5HE mortars. That said, the Sexton, at that point, the dispersion is like the radius, explosion radius. My god, I can't talk today. It's still pretty horrible. Rhino, honestly, A tier. I originally was like, it has a pretty low rate of fire, and that makes it just but it is the most accurate artillery, howitzer artillery. So despite a pretty low rate of fire, that really set actually helps to make up for it. Originally I was like, that's still pretty bad, but the accuracy I think is still quite good, especially for clearing towns, because most artillery is still too inaccurate for that. Or most howitzers aren't like M110s or something. It does eat for relatively quickly though. Tanks. Logim. That thing used to have 5-side armor, by the way. The Logim is okay. 20 front armor, 23 AP. Essentially like an... Wait, is there something with that? Yeah, like a Kumara, but a Kumara has 12 RPM. If you compare this to the 1-to-1, you trade one front armor from 1 RPM, which is okay. You're very, very accurate. You're still pretty fast, but you like autonomy. But at this point, 400 kilometers is still a decent threshold in my eyes. Honestly, it's probably still 8 here. It's just that due to the rest of the way the rest of the deck works, you just can't really make this work as much as you could with a 1-to-1 or something. Optimum, if it had an MG and better autonomy, would be easy S tier, because the stats for this price are just ridiculously good, but it's just held back by autonomy, which is good, right? It shouldn't be like a OP tank for the price, but the autonomy and I guess lack of MG keeps it balanced. Wooden Mark 1B, it's just solid, right? Compared to Leopard 105, for 5 points less, you gain 1 armor, lose MG, and have horrible autonomy. Right, the Leopard 105 is 65 points, same AP, 10 RPM, 10 front armor. But it also has poor optics, right? The 105 has medium optics, so let's put it in C tier. Right, the other Odifans, I admit, they're just not impressive. It's not impressive at all. Originally, Eugen wanted to give them all the 105mm guns for 4AG because of hash rounds, which gave at least a 30.1 actually a reasonable roll, but then that didn't happen in the end. And now they're just not that great. Roycard 105. It is a really, really good unit, right? It is just very, very hard to properly rate this unit just because it's exclusive to South Africa and it just is placed differently than AMX 10s. Just due to the fact that it has a stabilizer. And it's a bit more costly. In South Africa, it is obviously a must take. It's like one of the key units of this deck, without a doubt. Question is, would it be like an auto take in other decks, right? I think it might still be. The Mark 1C, I'm honestly gonna put in B tier. However, this is completely overshadowed by the 105. I think if this unit was in any other deck that isn't this, and I guess maybe France or like decks that include French units, it would probably still be taken very often because medium optics very fast, and it still double taps a lot of vehicles that it's gonna encounter, like in the opener. I'm just checking what I just wrote there. So yeah, that's why you're gonna get blue. Recon. How far in army? 30 minutes. See, we're gonna get this done. Alouette is a 40 points Recon helicopter, which is just like we even already have an Alouette 3 in here, right? I'm not gonna add that. Elan 90. It's same thing as the AML 90, which is I think in C tier. Elat 90 NTAC. Is it? I'm just gonna put it right like this. It is kind of a fun unit, and I believe it can fire both. That is, can it? Let me check. No, it cannot fire both at the same time. Oh no, hold up, I looked at the wrong thing. Yeah, no, it cannot fire both at the same time. There's some fun stuff you can do with this, but it's not gonna suddenly transform the unit. Recon 1 of 76. I think it is 8 here. The main disadvantage of this is it sucks quite a bit against infantry. Which isn't as important for the tank type version, but it is for this, because Recon units like this also typically are relatively important for support, or there to make sure that infantry just doesn't cross between forests or something like that. And if your infantry DPS and suppression as well, when it comes to panicking and stunning, is that low, it's just hard to really, you know, fill that role well for 50 points. Pyro Pathfinders. Originally I was like, oh, they're gonna be really good, right? They're essentially gonna have a very, very similar DPS to Navy SEALs and whatnot, because they have virtually the same grenade launcher, but are cheaper. You have more of them. It's gonna be actually quite good, but they just, I mean, they were alright, but honestly, not really that much better. And unfortunately, they don't get rattles either. Rover is a Recon Jeep. Where did I put all of the chat is down there? SISF Sniper. You're gonna be just like Senkai, etc. So B tier. Trackers are your regulars, which are they in? Yeah, they're B tier as well. Right, these guys. XH1 Alpha, it actually took me quite a long time to figure out that the gun on this thing doesn't have isn't on a turret, so it's stationary. Before I would have put it in like S or A tier, but given that it's a stationary gun, honestly probably still A tier, because while it is a good bit slower than the Gazelle cannon, which also is a stationary but much worse gun, the gun itself is actually quite good. So yeah, if this gets in range of like an APC CV or something, it will kill it, whereas the Gazelle cannon just might legitimately waste all its ammo before it can actually kill it. Okay, vehicle transports. We have the Casper K car, which is a worse VAB T20, which I put in A tier. Given that you lose 5% accuracy, that is a lot. That is a good bit. It isn't as noticeable at close range, but it is at long ranges. So I'm gonna put this in B tier. I obviously have here 15.2 with Recon transports. So like these basic transports like Buffalo and Castor Mark II, they are under those umbrella terms. Then we have the Rattle 20. S tier, I would say. It's a VAB T20, but 1 extra front armor. And that's huge. That's huge. Rattle 20 Milan. Let me just check. I don't think it can fire both at the same time, can it? No, it cannot. Actually, hold on. I need to rectify this. Rattle 20 is not gonna be in the S tier because it has a big availability penalty. I forgot about that. And it affects every unit. So yeah, the VAB T20, I believe, does not, or only on some infantry affected. The Rattle 20 significantly affects availability. Rattle 20 Milan, it's fine, right? But of course, you're gonna significantly increase the price, especially if you get it live with line infantry. 25 versus 30 points for a squad, quite a big difference. Rattle 60, legit B tier. It's just kind of hard to fit this in, but mortar spam is strong, and with this you can mortar spam really good. It's just that they also eat your supply like nothing else. Rattle 90, honestly, C tier. There were a few players who really expected this to be like a ridiculously strong unit, and I'm not sure if how many still hold on to that belief, but it's just not that great, honestly. Just not great. Alright, let's check the other vehicles. Ferret and Tech. Nope. Ferret Mark II Milan. I mean, it's a Milan 1 for 25 points. I think you pay, what, 10 points for it being on the Ferret? Is that correct? What does the... Oh no, you pay 5 points. The Rattel is not too bad because you get a 2 front armor and you're pretty fast. The Swift isn't that fast, but does have 70% accuracy though, which is honestly quite nice. But the 2 front armor especially, good. Rover 106. It's like the... No, it's actually worse than Wombat, so yeah. Did I put the Wombat actually in a different tier? Yeah, I did. I put it in C instead of D tier. I'm still uncertain about this thing here. Not a huge fan, but I'm still not certain if it is better than the Rover or not. While you do have 1 armor and 10 HP, you pay a 50% price increase, right? Rattle 90 FSV is honestly not that great either. Helicopters, transport helicopters, you have Oryx and Puma. I think 25 points, MG Helos. Do we have 20 point? Where's the... I mean, we have to Puma 330H already as well. Helicopters, K-Car, C tier. Don't underestimate this thing. Despite it having its gun on the side and not on a turret, it turns really quickly and has quite the angle it can fire from. So it's not that it takes not a lot of time to get this thing firing. Beta 87, honestly, for me, very similar to the Escort. It doesn't have the armor and it's a bit slower, but it has a better autocannon and of course 2 of those Kukri missiles. So it's just a very good support helo. A horrible anti-air helo, but just very good all-around support helo like the Escort. Beta 90. The main thing with this is, as good as these hit, they're not as fast as Hellfires, for example. And of course, you have only 6 HP with not that high speed, which is something that you'd normally expect from a high-end attack helo, right? Speed and a bit more HP. It doesn't have either. It still has the amazing gun and good rocket pods, although fewer now, of course. Half of them. That's a difficult one. What else do we have here? What attack heli? Basic Heinz. It's not as bad as a basic MA24 piece. It's not on the same level. It still hits like a truck, right? And it has 90 of those 26 AP missiles. Sorry, we don't do apostrophes here. Oh, but it's literally in the, whatever. Royvalk, similar story. It's now of course more expensive and it is faster, but of course, and I mean, it is of course faster and has more HP, but also more expensive is what I meant to say. But also carries some Mistrals, so it's a very good gun. I would say they fill kind of the same role, but I'd never put in both. Planes, Buccaneer. Buccaneer would put in the C tier. It's certainly not absolutely worthless, and it's mostly a 1 versus 1 plane, because in Team Games, the A8 density is just much higher. Can I remove the hyperlink? Oh, there we go. Remove link. There you go. Yeah, and the veterans of course massively helps, and a low speed, while it massively reduces its survivability, also increases its killing power because it allows you to get more missiles out. Carver. Okay, I need to get into tech building because I never fully remember some of the veterancy. 2 unhardened. I mean, it is essentially a Barak 2. 50% ECM, the same missiles, more HE on the SRAMs, but I think they also have a bit less range, but practically very similar. Cheetah D is a weird one. It is a horrible seed plane, but its main advantage is just its multi-role capabilities. It's a good anti-helo diver. If it gets in the range, good against planes as well because of the Vulcan stat clone. And that alone makes it beatier. It's just so versatile. It can, in a pinch, if you get not too unlucky, kill ground units, right? At a reasonable range, which gives it some survivability as well. But it's just horrible at seed. But it's more like the Puff, right? Where its value comes just from how much it can help you in various situations. Saber. It's alright. It has a good payload. It's reasonably fast. I don't remember where I put the... I think the other Sabers had like only like other rocket pods, right? And fewer worse ones, I believe. So whatever. Impala has quite a payload actually, so you can split those very well. Mirage 3CZ. You get only 3 on it, of course, not 4. So I've played with and against this a reasonable amount of times. It just doesn't have enough missiles. If it had 2 of those R530s, it would help. But the thing is, even if you spam like 3 or 4 of those against a plane, it's just not very effective. It's just not very effective at all. It's by no means like useless, right? Especially against like bombers or something, if you have 2 of those circling, can do some nice work, but it's also just 65 points, right? It's just a Helo Hunter. It's not particularly good, but it's cheap. And I want to get this video done. I'll be honest. Cheetah C. It's like a Yak 1-for-1, but you get the Vulcan Cyclone and you get these instead of 60%, but also worse SRAMs. So honestly, similar trade-off. I'd probably prefer this, honestly. But I wouldn't say it suddenly puts it in S tier. R3EZ. You get it on Elite, but it's just still so inconsistent and has no survivability. Nah. The F1AZ is actually not too bad because you get 3 of them. It has a reasonable payload, it has at least some ECM and is fast. So it's like a niche plane. There's worse out there because it can also like be a decent helo killer, right? Having decent Kukris and a twin Defa. Cheetah E is absolutely awful. Horrible payload for the price, no matter the survivability. If it had like MRAMs or something, sure, but like no. Cheetah D2. I saw it. It's like a Q5D, but honestly better because it's faster. It's just useless. I think this might actually be like one of this could be the worst plane in the game. We need to check something when we're done. Once we're done here, Canberra. It has really good payload, but just and it does have 15 HP. Excuse me, not 15% ECM. But it also just dies very quickly, and it doesn't have the same flight altitude as the B5. Right. But before I say goodbye here, which one is 30 points? Oh, the HE one, okay. I thought the napalm one was 30 points, so I was gonna complain. But something to keep in mind is the napalm from the Mark 77s is actually smaller than the one from the ZB 500s. So you do get a 20mm autocannon though on this thing, so I guess there's that. But yeah, that's this tier list updated for South Africa. Yep. Good luck finding all the individual units. My god, this is ugly. But if there's one thing that Warner is gonna be good for is instead of having like, let's say 17 nations or something. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 22 nations, okay. And a bunch of coalitions. If like once, you know, DLCs, etc. arrive, so many divisions, that's really good for tier lists. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Honestly, even I am tired of this tier list now. I originally, like up until the very end, right, excluding this one, this was a lot of fun for me. Right now, I'm tired of it. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to do one for the patch notes. I just can't see this anymore. It was kind of a struggle for me. It was kind of a slog, but it had to be done. But yeah, we still enjoyed it. You probably noticed that I wasn't really into it, but whatever. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.